Greetings from OneMedRadio. I'm Matt Margolis. Today we welcome Edward Cox, Vice President of Corporate Development for Apricus Bio, a San Diego-based pharmaceutical company trading on the NASDAQ. Apricus Bio outlicenses their unique NexAct drug technology and also develops a projected $10 billion pipeline of drug candidates at various clinical stages. The company's lead product, Vitaros, is approved for erectile dysfunction in Canada and in filing abroad. Their pipeline also includes candidates for oncology, autoimmune, anti-infective, and cosmetics, to name a few. Thanks for being here today, Ed.
Matt, thanks for having me.
Apricus announced in March that the European patent protection is going to last until 2020 for NexAct technology. It is the 16th patent granted for the technology worldwide. So, Ed, from a company growth perspective, what is the magnitude of this latest news?
I think it's important. I mean, obviously, NexAct is the core technology around not only our lead products, but also the future products that we want to develop, and also the ability to partner the technology with other companies. So as we continue to build a stronger kind of walls around our core patents and around our core technology, it's always going to be significant. And so, we've got a very broad patent portfolio now. I think we have 135 patents and about 125 patents pending. But something like the European patent that was granted is significant, and so we're very pleased, of course.
And maybe you could go into some detail actually about the NexAct technology. What makes it particularly unique among competitors?
Sure. No, that's a great question. Most delivery technologies are either a device or a process to deliver drugs, versus what we actually have is a small molecule, which is called DDAIP, and it itself is what does the delivering. So, which is important because we have NCE patents on the delivery molecule itself. So what happens is that you take the active ingredient that you want to deliver, like a prostadil, for instance, and you combine it with DDIP, which is its own small molecule. And then that is what delivers the active ingredient into the body by loosening the tight junctions on a microscopic level. And so for us, I think it's different than a lot of competitors in a drug delivery kind of space, because it's not a way to deliver drugs. It is for almost a way to conceptualize it. It's almost like another molecule that is delivering drugs as what its function is.
So with the surge in personalized medicine, both from a scientific and also from an investor perspective, how has your business approach changed?
Well, I think personalized medicine is important. I mean, in many ways, I think it's going to be the future of the way medicine goes. And I think the idea of one treatment to fit everyone is just not going to work. A great example is erectile dysfunction. You have 3 products on the market already in Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, and those are great drugs. They're very effective, and for a large portion of the population, they're very safe. The problem is that there's a large portion of the population that they're either not effective for or they're not safe for, and that is, I think, somewhat limiting. So I think that having drugs like our Vitaros drug, which it does treat people that can take Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but it can also treat the people that can't, I think is important, because it shows that personalized medicine and designing treatments for the entire patient population, not by one size fit all, but instead realizing that people are different and they need different types of solutions for the same problems, is where the future of medicine is going to go. And we think that we're maybe not ahead of the curve, but we certainly believe in the curve, and that putting these kind of products in patients' hands is going to help everyone.
And you mentioned erectile dysfunction, and actually your lead product, and you've had a lot of success with Vitaros. Particular company highlights for 2011 also include sales of the drug by Abbott Laboratories. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about milestones for Vitaros.
Sure. No, that's a great question. So to be specific, Abbott's going to launch the product this year in 2012, and we're extremely excited. It was approved in Canada, and we partnered with Abbott, I think, in January, so not even that long ago. And then soon thereafter, we partnered with Sandoz Novartis to sell the product in Germany once the product gets approved in Europe. And so that's a huge product for us. Obviously, erectile dysfunction is a massive space. It's, I think, $4.8 billion worldwide, but that only includes people that can take the present treatments. There is a large portion of the population that either the doctor will never prescribe it to them in the first place because they're contraindicated, cardiac issues or alpha blockers and nitrates, stuff like that, or they take the drugs and they don't work. And so for us, we are viewing that the erectile dysfunction market space is going to grow bigger because we're going to treat not only people that would like to have faster-acting treatments, because Viteros is faster-acting than the other drugs, but also the patients that aren't being treated at all. And so launching with a partner this year like Abbott is a really significant step, and we're excited about that. And then at the same time, having partners in place like Sandoz Novartis, it's tougher to do better than the partners we've already done. And we're going to continue to do more, but we've been really pleased with who we've already brought on board.
Being a San Diego-based company, but operating primarily internationally right now, I was wondering if you could give our listeners an idea of what opportunities and challenges arise for an American company doing business internationally, especially going off the steps that you've taken getting Viteros approved in Europe, for example.
Yeah, I think that it's if a company has the internal skill set to do it, I think a company is much better served viewing the market as an international market, as a worldwide market. I think that sometimes smaller companies, and we're not a large company, shies away from directly engaging international options itself. But fortunately enough, we're a pretty diverse company. I think our CEO speaks something like 5 languages or something. So it's made for the ability to do partnerships directly with pharmaceutical companies in Europe and to file directly for approval in Europe for our products like Viteros, and we intend to do that for other products. So I think that it makes sense for a company, regardless of where they're based, but certainly a U.S.-based company, to engage in international markets and to look at them as opportunities that you can do great in those markets. And in some cases, we may even sell Viteros and some of our products ourselves in those markets because we believe in them. Clearly, the U.S. market will always be the largest, but I think it makes sense if a company has the strategic ability to do it. It makes sense to be engaged in both.
And one thing that's particularly unique about your revenue and growth scheme is that it's driven from out-licensing your next act drug delivery technology, but also to fostering and monetizing a pipeline. So what is the logic behind self-selling as well as out-licensing other technologies together?
Well, I think that companies need to move away from the viewpoint that it's a binary world. In that what they need to do is they need to build a massive sales infrastructure and they need to sell this product themselves, or they don't want to be involved in sales at all and they want to only out-license. I mean, I think what makes the most sense is to look at each territory and look at each drug and say what drives the most amount of value for my shareholders. A product like Viteros or a product like Femprox requires hundreds, if not thousands, of salesmen in a territory like the U.S., so I don't think it makes sense for a company of our size to try to build out a sales force like that when you can find great partners that can do that. And so I think in some territories it's going to be driven by market size and what's the best way to achieve the best sales in that market and, what's the best return on investment for us. But then there's other markets, particularly a couple markets in Europe, where because of their market size, a company of our size could very well sell the products directly ourselves. They're huge markets, but they're geographically and sort of from an infrastructure standpoint, they're set up for a company of a medium size to be very effective. And so I think it's just good strategy to be a mix between out-licensing royalty-based revenue streams and also self-selling. And I think that what you're trying to do is extract the most amount of value for each product in each territory. And you're also trying to make sure that it gets into the hands of the most amount of patients possible. And so I think a one-size-fits-all is too simplistic approach if you have the ability to execute.
We actually have only really talked about Viteros in your pipeline so far. I would love to touch on Femprox, which you mentioned in your previous response, which is, in case our readers don't know, a female sexual arousal disorder treatment. which has recently completed a first phase 3 trial. What is the plan this year to move forward with that?
I think that the plan to begin with is we're going to get regulatory guidance middle of this year to find out what next steps are for Femprox. Like possible next steps would be file and run a second phase 3, which is common in the U.S. is to have 2 phase 3s. And I think our plan is specifically in the U.S. is to probably partner that product with a company that has a big, powerful sales force in the OBGYN space. I mean, Femprox is an interesting product because it's going after what is in fact a massive indication, female sexual arousal disorder, which is not to be confused with female sexual dysfunction, which is something different. Female sexual arousal disorder is a massive market space that affects as many as 10 million women. And the major issue is that it's just a lack of lubrication. And so Femprox is a topical vasodilator using our DDIP technology, and it allows blood flow to the region. And we've seen in a successful phase 3 great results. And it's, at least in all the studies we've done so far, it's also a very safe product because it works quickly and effectively. And so for us, that's a great example, as we were saying earlier, of personalized medicine. I mean, this is something that there is a high demand for. There's a lot of erectile dysfunction treatments, but there's no approved female sexual arousal disorder treatments. And for us being, at least to our knowledge, as far out as anybody, having already completed a phase 3, we're proud of that. And we think that once we put in place a top-grade pharmaceutical company or top-tier pharmaceutical company as a partner, and run another successful phase 3, if that's potentially the path forward, it's going to be a major step, not only for the company but for also patients that have this disease.
It's very interesting, and it's an interesting pipeline. So I thought as our last question, I could circle back to some recent news that you had. In February, you announced a new focus, and quoting from your press release, you are announcing a new focus as a commercially driven specialty pharma company. So what challenges and opportunities do you see for Apricus Bio going forward?
Well, I think that is effectively the step that every company, every pharmaceutical company wants to get to. We spend an enormous amount of money and time and years in development and research and in running clinical trials. And I think that every company wants to get to the point that they actually have products on the market and they are, cash flow positive and have their products in the hands of patients. And that commercial switch is a profound switch, and it's a permanent switch. And so for us, after many years of being a development stage company, this year with the launch of Viteros with Abbott and then some of the other products that are launching this year, we're making that switch. And that's really exciting for us because that's where I think every company, every biotech company or early stage pharmaceutical company wants to be. They want to come to the point that they've grown to the point of having their products on the market and in the hands of patients. And so for us, we couldn't be more excited because of that profound and permanent transition.
That was a company snapshot of Apricus Bio. OneMedRadio speaks with Edward Cox, Vice President of Corporate Development.